waste to sustainability. This panel highlights how emerging voices from the global south are reshaping development in a changing world. So we look forward to innovative solutions, inclusive approaches, and critical reflections in times of transition. So we are honored to have with us Dr. Saima Hamid, Professor of Public Health and Theme Lead for the Global Health and Development in the Global Institute of Human Development at Shifa's Tamir Millat University. You may also be familiar, she has been the Vice Chancellor at Fatma Jinnah Women's University. So we are very privileged to have you here today, and we will look forward to hearing her concluding remarks. So today we are going to give the floor to 6 speakers whose presentations and papers have been shortlisted for this particular session. First of all, we have Ms. Shaista Tariq from Textile Research and Circulatory Innovation, Pakistan. Second is Mr. Asjad Sanaullah from Ibadat International University. Then we have Mr. Ramiz Ahmed from SIF Mission, Pakistan. Then we will have Dr. Tariqullah Khan. Fifth speaker is Ms. Noorul Ain. And lastly, we will have Ms. Kiran Ejaz of Muslim Hands. Before that, let me also give a brief introduction and warm welcome to our discussants who will be giving special remarks. Dr. Khalid Waleed, our research fellow at STPI, he'll be joining in a little while. Dr. Sophia Khalid, Chairperson, Department of Environmental Sciences at Allama Iqbal Open University, and Dr. Rabia Manzoor, Deputy Chief Policy at PIDE. Let's begin with a presentation from Ms. Shaista Tariq. She's joining us online. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's all about a mindset. Around the world, only 1% of textile waste is recycled, which means we are using just 1% of our mind to create change from waste to worth. The real transformation begins when we start thinking differently, when we see waste not as an end, but as a beginning. Assalamu alaikum, greetings, hi everyone. My name is Shaista Tariq and today I am presenting my research title Redesigning Textile Waste, a Gender-Inclusive Circular Model for Sustainable Growth in Pakistan. This presentation is based on real industry experience, supported by my ongoing work in textile circularity and sustainability. And this journey truly began when GIZ provided the opportunity that inspired and encouraged me to work at this level of implementation and innovation. From waste to purpose. This journey started from observing the gap between industrial textile waste and its potential for reuse. Working within the textile sector, I saw how tons of post-industrial and post-consumer waste are discarded every day, often ending up in landfills in former markets or exported at low value. It was through a project opportunity with GIZ that I was able to turn these observations into action, transforming ideas into structured research and pilot initiatives. This experience helped me understand that sustainability is not just about waste reduction. It's about creating systems that integrate people, processes, and purpose. The real challenge begins when we connect this industrial problem with our social context, particularly gender inclusion and livelihood opportunities. That's where the research model took shape, focusing on circular systems that are practical, inclusive, and scalable. Research, objectives, and approach. The main objective of this research was to develop a gender-inclusive circular model for textile waste management that connects environmental sustainability with social empowerment. The approach combines three core dimensions: circularity, to minimize waste and extend material life; second, gender inclusion, to create fair and dignified work opportunities for women in the recycling and upcycling sector; and third one, economic feasibility, ensuring that the model is practical and scalable for industries in Pakistan. This study focuses on redesigning waste system by linking industrial innovation with community engagement, building a bridge between factory floors and human livelihoods. Through this model, I aim to show that sustainable growth is not just a policy term, it can be a real measurable practice within our textile value chain. Model framework or research methodology. This model is built on a circular system framework designed to trace textile waste from generation to regeneration. It begins with the collection of industrial waste, followed by segregation, where materials are categorized according to their quality and type. The segregation process is done category-wise, where waste is carefully sorted into A, B, C, D, and E classes. The top quality materials categories A and B are reprocessed or re-exported, while the lower grades, such as C, D, and E, usually remain within the country. These are often sold in the local second-hand market, what we commonly call Lunda goods. Even within those markets, materials are systematically resorted and distributed to match regional demands. Now, I want to explain the process flow and implementation steps. While the framework began with industrial waste management, the same principles can also be extended to post-consumer waste, creating a complete circular pathway from production to the end user. The process begins with collection, where waste is gathered from weaving, stitching, and finishing units, as well as from consumer returns and discarded garments. Next comes sorting and segregation, ensuring that reusable and recyclable materials are separated early on. The sorted waste is then moved into processing units, where it can be respun, rewoven, and upcycled into new fabrics and products. At this stage, community engagement becomes central, particularly women's participations in sorting, stitching, and creative upcycling. These women-led activities not only transform textile waste into valuable products, but also create livelihoods, dignity, and inclusion. The process further integrates local markets. Together, these steps create a continuous loop where both industrial and consumer waste become resources again, reducing landfill pressure, supporting small businesses, and empowering communities. Now, the model impact and outcomes. This model has been tested and proved successful through practical implementation within textile production and recycling systems. The results demonstrated that a gender-inclusive circular model can work effectively in Pakistan's textile sector, improving waste utilization, increasing efficiency, and generating new livelihood opportunities. Women trained under this model were able to engage in fabric sorting, stitching, and creative upcycling, developing valuable skills that enhanced both their incomes and confidence. Environmentally, the system reduced waste volume, reintroduced materials into the value chain, and contributed to lower carbon footprints. These outcomes reflect direct alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, SDG 13, climate action. Together, these impacts show that sustainability can be both people-centered and economically viable when the right systems and mindsets are in place. Now, what is holding us back? No recognition for women in informal waste recycling. Even though women form the backbone of informal waste recycling, their work often remains invisible, unrecognized, undervalued, and unsupported decision-making processes. The real barrier is not lack of skills, it's lack of recognition, fair access, and digital visibility. As the model proved successful, it became clear that recognition and structured inclusion are the key to long-term change. We are living in a digital era where opportunities can cross borders. Imagine a digital platform where these women-led initiatives are visible globally, where upcycled and recycled products from Pakistan reach conscious consumers worldwide. Such digital transformation can give these women a voice, fair income, and international recognition, turning informal recyclers into visible contributors to sustainability. Because real progress begins when every invisible hand becomes a recognized force for change. Most important part of this presentation is the policy framework and recommendations. This policy framework is designed to bridge industrial and informal recycling systems, ensuring that circularity becomes an inclusive and structured practices across Pakistan textile value chain. The model promotes gender-inclusive recycling clusters, linking women's informal waste work to formal sector processes, from waste segregation to value-added upcycling. And now key policy recommendations focus on recognition and formalization. Integrate informal women recycler into the national waste management framework, ensuring safety, dignity, and fair income. Industrial collaboration. Encourage industries to establish partnerships with these clusters for traceable and responsible waste utilization. The third one is digital platform. Develop digital hubs where upcycled and recycled textile products can be showcased, tracked, and marketed globally, reflecting Pakistan's role in sustainable innovation. Then, skill and technology support. Introduce training and accessible recycling technology for women-led groups to improve efficiency and quality. Then climate integration. Recognize textile waste recycling as a climate action tool contributing directly to SDG 5, 8, 9, 12, and 13, reducing carbon footprint while empowering communities. In short, this framework transforms waste into opportunity and invisibility into recognition, making circularity not just an environmental goal but a social transformation pathway for Pakistan. Moving forward to conclusion, from waste to worth, the real transformation. At this stage, our journey from waste to worth is not just a recycling model, it's a movement of mindset and inclusion. Real transformation begins when we see waste not as an end, but as a new beginning. This entire project is about creating value for materials, for people, and for the planet. It's about empowering women in the informal recycling chain, giving them recognition, skills, and access to economic independence. It's also about business innovation, turning local textile waste into global opportunities through creativity, circular design, and digital platforms. As I often say, this is not only an environmental change, it's a mindset game. The world recycles less than 1% of its textile waste. That means we are using only 1% of our mind to begin change. The moment we expand that thinking, we open the door to a new future, a future where sustainability, equality, and innovation walk together. Together, we can truly move from waste to worth. Thank you so very much for your time. I know this topic has taken time and a bit of your attention today. but I truly believe it will make each one of us pause and think differently about how we see waste, people, and change. Together, we can turn waste into worth and ideas into action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shaista Tariq, for a very comprehensive presentation on innovation in the textile sector. May I also remind all the speakers that each speaker will be given 7 to 10 minutes. As you know, we had quite a few submission of papers for this particular panel, and a jury then shortlisted six top papers. So we want to give equal chance to everybody. Next, we will move to Mr. Asjad Sanaullah from Ibadat International University to share his presentation on the invisible hand of women, feminist climate leadership in fragile states. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all the dignitaries on the podium. As I was sitting there and I was thinking how to start my presentation, and I thought, let's give it some clinical touch as per my background. Uh, as you all know, women's have menstrual cycles after every 28 days, and they have after 3 to 5 days of bleeding in that period. So women's bleed out, and they approximately have 150 ml of blood loss per menstrual cycle. So if we summarize it as per their average lifespan, we will see that out of these 3 to 5 days, women's are bleeding on the average. If we take the age of a woman, they are bleeding approximately 7 years alive. That becomes 600 times in their life, and we count it as the age. The 7 years of their life they bleed, and per bleed they are having 150 ml of blood loss. If we accumulate it and we gather it, it becomes approximately 150 liters of blood they bleed in their whole life. An average male has 5 to 6 liters of blood in their body. So it means women are having approximately, they bleed in their whole life is the blood they have approximately about the 65 males. So how can you say the women are less than the males? Yet the women survive, study, they lead, and but we don't have in them in policy makings and etc. That is the topic. I was just making the background, the invisible hand of women, feminist climate leadership in fragile states. Basically, we want women's are empowering. Women's have to be empowered. They are leading, but they are behind the cam. As I was discussing with madam, they are behind the cam. We have just bring them above the cam, front of the cam. We have to move them. We have to make them dominant in the policy makings and etc. I will quickly move up. So being the contest, fragile states face compound crisis, weak institutions. Fragile states, those are the institutions, are the states, they are having weak institutions, conflicts, inequalities, amplify climate impacts, etc. Climate shocks, flood, droughts, heat waves are threats, multipliers, deepening food insecurity, poverty, and displacements. Women in fragile states are disproportionately affected. They manage water, food, caregiving. We can take the example, I have also put that in my upcoming slides. Since flood in 2022, women's lead the group. There was no organization there. There was no rescue services, but a bunch of females, they set up a camp in a school, and they put all the audience who were on vulnerable to the flood. They were managing all the things. I have also discussing in upcoming slide. Existing government approaches are top-down, militarized, technocratic, often overlooking local and gender resilience. Without inclusive leadership, climate adaptation remains inequitable and unsustainable. That was the context of my research topic. So we have the problem statement. Women lead in crisis but remain invisible in climate governance. In fragile states, women sustain communities through environmental crises, managing food, water, and recovery, yet their leadership remains unrecognized in formal climate institutions. I'll also provide the evidence of these things. I've also put references down there, but upcoming I will explain a bit in short terms. Less than 2% of the global climate finance reaches women-led initiatives. Policy responses remain centralized and patriarchal, ignoring local knowledge care networks and relational leaderships. A persistent gap between community and resilience and national climate governance. If you correlate the first title subheading, women lead in crisis but remain invisible in climate governance, and a persistent gap between community resilience and national climate governance exists. That is the problem statement there. So research objectives to explore how feminist leadership models grounded in inclusivity, collaboration, and lived experiences transform climate governance in fragile states, to demonstrate that gender equitable leadership is not only ethical but strategically essential for resilience, legitimacy, and sustainability. And the last one is to align with the theme. We have new voices in the sustainable development to align feminist climate actions with SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 13, climate action, SDG 16, inclusive institutions, directly supporting the SDG 2025 vision. Here we have some theoretical frameworks present in our literature and background. Three interlocking frameworks. We have ecofeminism, links exploitation of nature with subjugation of women, advocates for care-based economies, ecology, reciprocity, and environmental justice. Women ecological knowledge is almost equal to the critical to the community adaptations. Intersectionality, recognizing how gender, class, ethnicity, and displacement intersects to shape vulnerability, moves beyond women as victim, contextual, diverse experiences, and power and resilience. The last one model is resilience theory, very common, very well known, expands resilience from bouncing back to bouncing forward. It resonates on the whole phenomenon of bouncing back to bouncing forward. And it applies down here that women can not only bounce back, they can bounce forward. There are some evidences, women-led climate leadership models from the margins to the mainstream, women leading climate resilience, taking the example of Pakistan Women's Flood Recovery Network. We have in 2022, as I explained earlier on, that they organized evacuations, flood occurred, they put the community down there, they handled all things, they managed to a shelter for them, they managed the food for them, they managed the whole community. They were a bunch of females, then they gathered up and then piled up, and they became the biggest stakeholder of that time. That was flood 2022, and that is very common. Recently we had now a very devastating flood in Pakistan. You can imagine a female carrying a child and some luggage and half drowned in the water, and she is moving just for the sake of her family, because that family is making an environment. If there is no women, there is no home, there is no environment. That's Bangladesh Coastal Women Resilience Alliance, and we have Kenya Greenbelt Movement, just like that. Latin America, Mayores Unidas por el Clima, that is also a movement of them. For them, they have women's, they were cutting the trees for making some societies and colonial areas, but the women took the power, and thousands of women gathered, and they saved 10,000 plus trees in that area. They saved the climate, and they have the best climates in that area of the time. That was also some evidence from that. Then we have some barriers we are facing in fragile states for the women. Invisible hands of the women, those are lagging and they are being put down. Patriarchal norms and gender exclusions, leadership viewed as a male domain, women confined to caregiving roles. And we can see we have on the podium, all the females are present. They are biggest stakeholders of that. Their times, they are belonging to institutes, government, and policy makings. They are moving forward. Cultural restrictions limit women's mobility and access to local councils. Examples in Pakistan and Sudan, tribal and religious hierarchies silence women's voices. Then we have tokenism without power. Women can be given power, for example, in governments and assemblies and etc. All other policy making power authorities. They are given power, but their voices are overheard. They don't have they don't have a token of interest, or they don't have a basic domain authority. They can they can get ruled over by someone. They can mostly by the male members of that policy making institute. They are representing, but they are representing without any influence. Funding gaps, less than 2% of the global climate finances reach women-led organizations. Bureaucratic grants, procedures favors large institutions, etc. Policy exclusions and weak institutions. Fragile states rely on top-down, emergency-driven situations. Mostly fragile environments and fragile countries have to listen to the other countries who are funding them, who are supporting them. So they have to follow their rules. They cannot make their own ones. So what global policy frameworks, opportunities for change? We have a structure present. We have to redefine, rethink, and regain the thing we are discussing here. Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 5, Women Empowerment, SDG 13, Climate Action, SDG 16 and 17, Partnership of Institutions, Peace, etc. We have UNFCCC Gender Action Plan, that is present, we can refer to that plan for these kind of things. They have made a whole plan, but we just have to imply in that, and we have to give women's power and authority, not just the representation in that council or policy making institution. National region, SARC pathways, ESCAPE pathways, we have these things, financing innovations, gender responsiveness, climate funds. Also, climate funds are released based on the women categories in Pakistan too, but they are not enough sufficient. They can be held in the environment and they can bring some kind of change. Feminist leadership works but remains systematically undervalued. That is the whole key findings from the all things, because women are being underdriven. They exist, they have a role, but they are behind the cam. We have just to bring them back in front of the cam, because they are the primary stakeholders from the home, from a room to the whole environment, and to the policy making institute. They are the major stakeholders. Here are some policy recommendations. These are on different levels, government levels, international donors and multilateral banks. We have regional and global institutions, and we have civil society. All they have to play the role. Government have to formalize things. They have to restructure the things. Things are existing, but they have not properly structured. They have to restructure the things. Government is trying these such kind of events or conferences. These are a part of that initiative. These come under that forum, but they have to restructure on the policy making in the government basis, in the provincial level, in the national level, in the subnational levels, etc. International donors and multilateral banks, because when they give loans and they give donations for some kind of activity, they basically track down to for that what consequences have occurred after that thing. So they have to make this sure to the government or to the stakeholders who are they giving a loan, that they should include women's as the power of token of power in their institutions or their projects, etc. Civil society and academicians, etc. Like we are having a conference, this is a basically practical plus theoretical activity. It's linked with academia, and we have the stakeholders from the different institutes. They can correlate these kind of things with them. Regional and global institution, etc. We have SDGs devised. SDGs explain each matter of this universe. They have defined, confined everything in that. We have SDG 13, we have SDG 17, we have SDG 5, especially relating to the females. So here we move to the conclusion. The climate crisis is also a leadership crisis, one that demands inclusion, sympathy, empathy, and equality. We have feminist in leadership remains, can transform the things. Feminist leadership should be empowered. Just like women's leadership is not symbolic, it's a strategic thing. Recognizing the invisible hand of women and to empower them, to give them a token of power. Let's work together, and I'll end up with a वर्स फ्रॉम द पोइट्री ऑफ इकबाल के वजूद जन से है तस्वीर कायनात में रंग, इसी के साज से है ज़िंदगी का साज दुनू. तो जो तस्वीर कायनात में रंग की बात इकबाल ने की, आई थिंक दिस कैन रिलेट टू दैट. वजूद जन से ही है तस्वीर कायनात में रंग. वी थिंक तस्वीर कायनात एज अ क्लाइमेट, देन द फीमेल्स आर द प्राइमरी स्टेक होल्डर्स. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you, Mr. S. Jasanullah, for leaving some food for thought and sharing your key findings. Next, we have Mr. Ramiz Ahmed Sheikh of SIF Mission Pakistan, and he'll be sharing his presentation on localized impact of climate change on communities in Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all my distinguished guests and my colleagues and the participants. STPI is really congratulations to this is the third time you have to basically organize a Sustainable Development Conference. And this is a good opportunity for the youngers and the policymakers and the experts to learn from the different perspective on the climate change. So my research today, which I'm going to present in front of all of you, I'm not going to into the details as my moderators tells we have only 10 minutes to conclude of my presentation. So I'm just going to about what is my methodology and what is my key recommendation and policy recommendation I'm going to highlight on my presentations. So my research presentation, actually the aim of this presentation is to analyze, next please. The research aims to basically analyze and describe the localized impact in Sindh. So my research is basically focused on the Sindh, which is the face of the some of the floods, drought, and the heat waves, which is impact on the agriculture and the livelihood sector. So these sectors especially affected from the last 2 decades on the floods, especially in overall Pakistan. But I have collected the data and the information from the Sindh side. The livelihood vulnerability, which is a small farmers are affected from these floods because the livelihood and the economic circulations have the effective of these families because these are the economic system decline based on this thing. So the key point of my presentation is talk about the urgent call for the adaptations. This is very important. So my research, which is conducted on the responders, is 91% is talk about the household basically reporting the climate related loss which is affected from the floods. We need to the community based resilience adaptations and the safeguarding from these sectors. So these study is also highlighted the 6 thematic areas, especially in agriculture, infrastructure, wash, education, gender, and the social culture. So I have 3 research questions and the puzzles which I am going to address, and also giving the analysis of my recommendation. So how climate impact livelihood and water ability in Sindh communities, and why do local communities remain the high vulnerable despite awareness of the climate risk? Uh, and what are the basically the climate based strategies can be the best practices and the best models we can apply it here. As you know that I am basically from the SIF, basically the INGO, which is implementing of these climate change implementation innovation strategies model to the communities, especially in KP, Sindh, Balochistan, and in the Punjab. And we also basically talk about the prevention center. So my research basically objectives are 3, which I am going to access the localized impact and what are the issues which are we have facing to identify the vulnerability community levels, reducing of this thing, and also to basically the third objective is based on the to propose evidence-based adaptation strategies for the climate change and the global commitment Pakistan have to. So this is my basically the theoretical framework, which is basically based on the causes of the climate change and what are the uh, issues and adaptation and policy recommendations. So now I'm not going to the detail of this framework, just is more to highlight what people are thinking about related to the climate change and what are the need of the community for the prevention and the adaptations for the climate change. So the methodology of my research paper, I have conducted of this research from the mixed method studies, from qualitative and quantitative analysis, and a structure of the questionnaire for open-handed and closed-handed question, and gather the data from the 212 respondents from the 3 districts of the Sindh, that is Ladkana, Sakhar, and the Jamshoro, which is more affected in 2022 floods, and giving the theoretical analysis and some of the analysis. So these are basically my geographical area of where I have conducted of this research. 72 respondents are based on the Sakha, and 70 is Jamshoro, and 70 is from Ladkana. It's total is 212 people. So I'm not going to the global context and not talk about this thing. I have a very basic question which I asked from the community and what they have know about the climate change. 70% people don't know about the Maholiyati Tabdili. They don't know about the what is a climate change issue. That is the implementation is so far, but people is not understand what is a climate change. So in Sindh, especially in 3 districts, it's quite shocking for to answer of these questions. People is don't know about this thing. What is the strategy? The level of the awareness about the DDR, that is disaster risk reduction, is 68% is don't know about the DDR structure, what it is and how we can prevent this. And but on the other side, community face climate change in especially in 3 districts in out of 212 people, 207 people are affected from the floods, and 59 people are from the drought, heat waves, and extreme cold weather of this thing. So they are facing all this thing, but they don't have understanding about what are the natural disaster and what are the climate change. 91% of these people from these districts are affected from loss and damage due to the climate change events in these districts, and they have affect different sectors, especially the house damages, agriculture, injuries, and the losses in livestock and livelihood and transportation sector. So these people are basically faced in last 2 and 3 disaster which are happen in this sense, so they have affected from this. So these are my quantitative data and the qualitative analysis on the 4 thematic sector, especially the livelihood, water security, gender, and the mental health. After the disorder, that is a post-disaster traumas issues, gender's impacts, especially those women are working in the fields, crops, and especially the young girls are basically withdraw the schools. They had out of school. So now these are very common issues, but these are affected over household level. They are affected over economy. They are affected over economic system in this sector. So what are our policy recommendations and how we can basically apply, especially in the context of this sin and other sector, that we need of the, especially the strengthening community-based adaptations through the engagement of the communities, design, and local resilience plans. Utilize the indigenous knowledge on the local leadership is the decision making, especially with the village development committees, that is VDCs, we need to develop on this. Especially need to improve the disaster related preparedness knowledge to establish the early warning system, community level disaster commitments, and train the local volunteers in the first aid. As you know about the CERTs, that is community response committee, emergency response committees. So we need to basically mitigate of these and adopt of these policy for the prevention of the climate disasters. Enhance the water and climate agriculture resilience to improve the water and the drip irrigation channels, and also we need to the crop diversification to the spot of sustainable livelihood option and beyond the agriculture. So also we need to work not to ignore of this sector of the, especially the gender and also the mental health dimensions. Ensure the women decision making adaptations in planning and also the women leadership roles in the climate change sector. And also we need to basically address the trauma situation in the floods, as we have to recently see in the Punjab, in Multan, Muzaffargarh, and people are still facing on some trauma system. So we need to implement of these policy to psychosocial support to climate resilience framework, and also the foster the integration and partnership with the government, NGOs, and the research institutions, as we have seen the couple of the COP have discuss of this point in the international body, COP in 28, COP 29, and also is happening of the next week on the COP 13 Brazil. So we need to understand what is the local need, how to address the local need and mobilize the resources for the localized resilience projects and directly benefit for the vulnerable communities. Those are affected from these vulnerable communities, and engagement between of the stakeholders and the government level. So conclusion of my presentation is the key message related to climate change impact are human, not just environmental. That is the biggest argument. To true resilience begins the community level. SAF mission is committed to advancing the community lead adaptation in line and the national goals. So the closing line of my presentation is by empowering people, we can transfer the vulnerability into the resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramiz, for addressing key thematic areas and emphasizing local needs in your policy recommendations. Much appreciated. Next, we are joined virtually from Canada by Dr. Tariqullah Khan, CEO of Venture Ethica Toronto. So can we have your presentation, please? And maybe you can give a short introduction. Thank you. Is Dr. Tariqullah Khan online? Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Tariqullah Khan. Can you hear us?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Madam Chairperson, thank you very much. So without any delay, let me start the presentation here.
Ji, thank you, especially because you're joining from a time zone which is 10 hours behind Islamabad. So thank you for joining
Right.
us. late
Thank
hour.
you. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for giving me the opportunity to share something which is very dear to me and to us. I am basically a professor, and I have worked for so many years in the development finance, Islamic economics, sustainable development, and all those difficult and complex areas. So I came to the conclusion that we have to look at the development from a different paradigmatic perspective. And here I am pleased to share with you the framework which we have developed. And actually, this is the result of so many years of our work and thinking to establish a better human society. So the framework beyond 2030 are even thinking it from today. We call it regenerative human development. The character E is extremely important here because human development, we know it, and it was also developed by our Pakistani talent, but the experience is there, and we have to look at it from a more broader perspective, adding to it with the E, the human perspective. So the problem statement, Madam Chairperson, is fundamentally that all the indicators of the SDGs are not on the right track. But probably one of the most important achievement of the SDGs exercise is for us, all of us, to be aware of the climate crisis and the challenge which humanity is facing. So the problem statement fundamentally is that there is a conflict between human development and nature. This is data from not our research, but the European Environmental Agency is the source, but this research is from another organization, which basically shows that, which everybody knows, that those countries which have achieved high human development, high HDI, have higher ecological footprint, and those countries which are lagging behind human development index have lower ecological footprint. Another aspect of this issue is that the SDGs were initiated in 2015, but at a very rapid scale, the planetary boundaries are being violated. By 2023, and 2024 is also out, 9 planetary boundaries were identified. 6 of them are already transgressed. And with respect to the biocapacity of Earth, it is continuously being degraded over since 1971, and especially since the SDGs have been started. And what we are leaving to our next generation is going to be an Earth which is very difficult to live in. Temperatures will rise to 4 degrees over the here, for example, my own children, I got my children in 1980, and when they will become 70 years old, the temperatures will be 4 degrees, where right now in 2025 the temperatures have been 1.5 already. So we are going to live a world which is very difficult for even to exist. So what is the summary of this problem statement is that the 17 SDGs with the 169 targets is fundamentally very complex, and they have only magnified the conflict between society and nature. And this is where we have to start. If we have to improve SDG 1, SDG 2, for example, then that, given the existing paradigm, that will lead to the deterioration of the environmental SDGs. So that's the actually challenge, and how to overcome this challenge. We need a different paradigm of sustainable development, and we are suggesting that paradigm. And our paradigm is based on this understanding. This is not our work, but this is a very fundamental understanding of sustainable development. We have only one world, and within the capacity of that world, we have to have high human development. So, for example, Pakistan is within the boundary of the one world ecological footprint, but our human development index is much lower than what is the ideal one. So we have to move upward without getting out of the one world capacity, whereas the developed countries have achieved their high human development, for example, on the average with 5 Earth ecological footprint, as if there are 5 Earth, but in reality we have only 1 Earth. So within the 1 Earth capacity to achieve high human development is what is supposed to be the target of sustainable development. So what we did is that we developed a framework which we call as dynamic prescriptive economics. Of course, we don't have time to discuss it, but one of the domain in which we apply this framework is the sustainable development domain. For example, here, what we are suggesting, the first thing which we are suggesting is that if we get an experience from the implementation of the SDGs, we come to the conclusion that the fundamental issue is the conflict between society and nature. When we push on developing the society, the human development index, we try to push it, then we are disturbing the natural systems. So we need a paradigm which can measure these two pivotal dimensions, which is the social systems and the natural systems, in a unified form. Instead of measuring them as different, if we can measure them in a unified form, then we can be having a better solution to the problem. So here, in this framework, to measure, to provide a uniform framework for measuring the social impacts of a policy and the natural systems impact of the same policy, we can use this framework, which we call as the dynamic prescriptive economics framework. So actually the word is in quadrant 3, where we are not able to achieve, actually we are degrading the environment, as well as we are having social inequalities and exclusions. And there was a paper presented, an excellent paper, which is the circular economy paper, for example. That is a quadrant 4 if we don't consider the the society's aspect of the circular economy. And there is a big, actually, discussion, a lot of, maybe 45 trillion money is invested into the ESG, which is actually quadrant 2, where this is actually based on the same linear economy model, but with added risk management on the. So the ideal actually would be quadrant 1, where we have a complete synergy between the social dimensions of the policy and its impact on the natural dimensions. So this is the same thing again in repetition.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Tariqullah. If we can please move on to your final slides so that we can give equal time to other speakers.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for reminding me. So the paper contains the methodology of calculating those, but an important part of this approach is in the policy we have to actually separate what are the substitutions, what are transformations, and what are offsets. Generally, if we mix them, these different aspects of the policy, we don't get the clear outcome of it. So in the final analysis, let me go to the policy implications. The foremost important implication is that we have to have a unified measure of the human development and environmental development. Environmental sustainability and human development should have a unified measure, which we call as the normalized balanced coordinates. And then we need to have this substitutions, transformations, and offset separately defined in the policy and strategy. Madam Chairperson, I will conclude with that. Those are the actually fundamental two important factors in the paper. And I suggest if anybody is interested, the paper must be available to them. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Dr. Tariqullah, for sharing a different paradigm of sustainable development. Can we now move to Ms. Nurul Ain from International University in Indonesia? Are you joining us online? Walaikum salam. And in the interest of other speakers and discussants, if we can have your presentation within 7 minutes, please. Sorry to hurry you up.
I think I have a kind of technical issue, so I already informed the IT department to share. Okay. Not this one.
have you sent your other presentation,
Yes,
Ms.
I
Noor?
already sent it last
Well,
night.
We can figure out another one. Until then, we can move to the other speaker if you are trying to locate the file. So, Ms. Noor, we'll just come back to your presentation as we locate your correct one. We can ask Ms. Kiran Ejaz of Muslim Hands to share her presentation on grassroots approaches to sustainable community development. Thank you. This is not your topic either? We have a new topic? Yeah. Okay. Okay, sure. Okay, thank you.
कौन सी लानत है? Okay. That's fine. There's some issue in the slides, I think. Yeah, but where is my slides?
Umair, slides are not.
Slides are not visible. Okay, that's fine now. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm going to present my research on the title Building National Resilience, Climate Change Impacts on Food Security in the Province of Punjab. This research mainly focuses on how government policies and stakeholder engagement have contributed to building climate resilience in Punjab's agricultural sector. So, starting with a brief introduction. This is not working. So starting with a brief introduction, climate change, as we all know, is a global phenomena, but unfortunately the underdeveloped countries are very much affected by this phenomena. And Pakistan is a striking example of it, where despite contributing less than 1% to the global greenhouse gas emissions, we stand on the list of top 10 most climate vulnerable countries in the world. Within Pakistan, Punjab province, the country's food basket is bearing the brunt of these consequences, and it has led to reduction in its crop yields and crop productivity as well, which is a serious source of concern for Pakistan's food security. Therefore, it is imperative to build resilience in Punjab's agricultural sector. And for that matter, the government has introduced a set of policies and mitigation strategies. And this study is specifically focuses on the analysis of the extent to which those policies have been effective in building resilience to climate change. And it also examines the role of government stakeholder engagement in supporting that effort. So coming to the Punjab Punjab province contributes more than half to the national GDP and the agricultural and the cultivated land, which is why it is considered the breadbasket of Pakistan. But if we see between 2010 to 2017, the flood losses in Punjab province were estimated at over $18 billion. And in 2022 extensive floods also, we almost 2 million acres of agricultural land was lost. And these repeated events highlight the Punjab's economic vulnerability, which and it calls for an urgency in climate resilience measures. So coming to the policies, these are the policies that have been studied for this research. The first is Punjab agricultural policy, which focuses on productivity and enhancement. Then Punjab water policy, emphasizing efficient water use. Punjab climate change policy, which focuses on adaptation and mitigation measures. And finally, the National Adaptation Plan, which provides a national framework for climate resilience. Then the conceptual framework. This research is mainly grounded in a broader non-traditional security framework, which links human security to food security and environmental security. But ultimately, climate change is the driving factor which affects those domains, food security and environmental security. And our ultimate goal is to achieve climate resilience. Methodology. Coming to the methodology section, for this research, I have adopted a qualitative case study approach, and the data collection was done through both primary and secondary sources. The primary sources were in the form of semi-structured interviews conducted from experts and stakeholders in the field of food security and climate change from Islamabad, and the sample size taken was 10 participants. The secondary sources were data collection were collected from government and INGO websites, books, and journals. And finally, the data analysis, thematic analysis technique was applied to this study. Then coming to the findings section. These are the findings that I have gotten from the research conducted during from the interviews conducted during this research. The first one is effectiveness of government policies in building resilience to climate change, and it is further classified into two sub-themes. The first is failure to build resilience, and the second is building resilience through collaboration with the stakeholders. So the first sub-theme, failure to build resilience. Most of the respondents were of the view that the government has not yet been successful in building resilience to climate change, and agricultural sector is far less resilient than other sectors such as industry, energy, and infrastructure. And they also believe that there is a lack of integration of disaster reduction rules or climate rules in the infrastructure projects. And also most of the respondents also believed that the government, that while the policies were there, but their implementation is very fragmented, as one policymaker was of the view that the government has prepared for only one specific aspect, such as riverine flooding, but they failed to cater towards the flash floods or cloud bursts. And respondents also believe that the forecasts have improved, but our forecast early warning systems and flood early warning systems and forecast systems have improved, but they cannot do that. They can only get to save lives. They cannot do that for allied losses like infrastructure losses or crop losses. So it is a major weakness in the policy section. Then secondly, when it comes to building resilience, building engagement with the stakeholders, it is seen that collaboration with the NGOs and local communities is very less, and while some coordination exists, but the NGOs are only engaged to the point of desktops, and there's no meaningful engagement in the field. And extension services, the government extension services, they also remain very weak and outdated. And respondents criticized that when formulating the policies, the government has adopted a top-down approach, especially during the formulation of National Adaptation Plan. They believe that there was no real consultation made with the primary affectees like the local communities and farmers, and they have, which is a very major weakness in the policies. Then coming to the discussion section. From the findings, it is evident that the government has not been able to build resilience in the agricultural sector as of yet, and it is still in the learning phase. But there is a significant potential for improvement in the agricultural sector if they intend to build resilience in Punjab's agriculture. And secondly, there are also contrasting arguments on integration of disaster risk reduction rules or codes in the infrastructure projects. Moreover, they also believed that the government has not been fully prepared itself for the climate-related disasters. And although the flood preparedness is there, but the preparedness for other climate-related disasters is very minimal and very limited. The policies follow largely top-down approach rather than adopting a bottom-up approach with while making policies and speaking. This shows that the human security is very weak, and this further enhances the food insecurity and limits from the climate disasters are not being consulted in the policy main at the has failed to translate itself these policies into the climate resilience building in the agricultural sector. And the policies such as Punjab agricultural policy or climate change policy or the water policy hold immense potential for progress, but implementation remains fragmented and resilience is still at the very early stage. And moving forward, then I have 3 recommendations. The first one is that policies should adopt a bottom-up approach rather than adopting a top-down approach, ensuring that farmers and local communities must be consulted in the policy decision-making process. And second, the extension services and NGOs need to be strengthened so that the progress reaches the grassroots level. And the third is that it is very essential to integrate the disaster risk reduction codes or climate codes in the infrastructure projects and agricultural projects as well. Thank you. That's from my side.
Thank you, Ms. Kiran, for your presentation on building national resilience to climate change. And apologies for the blackout. This happens in Pakistan. So do we have Ms. Noorul N online? And have we found her PowerPoint?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick introduction. My name is Noorul N and I'm a master's research student of public policy, specializing in climate change at Universitas Islam International Indonesia. And first of all, it's a privilege for me to present today at the 28th SDPI conference. The topic of my presentation is on From Waste to Worth, the role of circular and sharing economies in mitigating plastic pollution. We'll explore how shifting from a traditional linear model to circular and sharing economies is crucial in addressing one of the most pressing global environmental challenges over time. And also, are these frameworks really a solution or an economic gimmick, like just a trick to get attention? Next slide, please. Okay, first, let's begin by grounding ourselves in understanding why and how plastic pollution matters. Globally, the scale of the plastic crisis is alarming as we produce over 400 million tons of plastics annually. And this issue is compounded by the fact that over 50% of plastics get used only once, and 99% of the synthetic plastics are derived from fossil fuels. In contrast, only 6% of plastics is recycled, with 22% of plastic waste being mismanaged, and the rest accumulate in landfills and leaking into the environment as an estimated 171 trillion plastic waste in the ocean, leading to the annual death of 300,000 marine species. And if we don't manage the production, consumption, and plastic waste now, then by 2040, plastic production will get double, and ocean plastics waste will nearly triple, causing biodiversity loss. Next slide, please. So this crisis is not just environmental, it's a direct threat to human health, largely through microplastics. We are now ingesting microplastics through our food and water. More concerning are the chemical impacts, compounds like BPA that can act as hormonal disruptors, affecting our development and immunity. Moreover, burning plastics or inhaling airborne microplastics contribute to respiratory problems, increasing the risk of asthma, bronchitis, and even cancer. So here the diagram shows the cycle that waste come from sources like industrial effluents and sanitary products to degradation into microplastics, which then contaminate our food chain through fishing and impact humans and animals. Next slide. So the core problem lies in a traditional linear economic model that is take, make, dispose. And the solution is a circular economy model that redesigns the loop system to keep materials in use and turning waste into a resource by focusing on 3R principles, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Here you can see a loop chain, like the direction are not correct, but it's from production to consumption, then waste management, and from waste to resources, and then again to production. Next slide, please. Leading organizations are already proving the viability of the circular economy. It is not just a theory, it is being implemented today. We can see reduce in action with companies like Unilever's Dirt is Good that redesigned packaging using cardboard containers and capsules that saved 6,000 plus plastic waste annually. Another example is Sapphire, that is one of the Pakistani clothing brand, offers eco-friendly seed bags as a substitute for plastic bags that decompose without leaving any harmful residues. Not sure if they still do that. Also reuse through widespread refill systems like the one in Indonesia, and recycle through groundbreaking innovations like Samsara Eco, that is a private Australian company that has developed enzymes that can infinitely recycle nylon and polyester to reduce textile waste. And the company's goal is to recycle 1.5 million tons of plastic per year by 2030. Next slide. The sharing economy principle aims to optimize resource use and waste prevention through shared access rather than individual ownership. It also plays a role by maximizing the utility of existing products and reducing the demand for new ones. For instance, UK food sharing platforms showed potential environmental benefits like reduced greenhouse gas emissions and water use by preventing food waste. But the same UK study found that money saved from sharing was often spent on other goods and services. So this creates a rebound effect that offset the environmental gains by 20 to 80%. So for the sharing economy to be a true climate solution, it must be designed with policies that ensure a net reduction in overall consumption. Next slide. So the good thing is that we don't need much effort to adapt these at the ground or indigenous level, particularly in the global South countries. Why? Because for centuries, indigenous and local communities have successfully practiced circular principles. For instance, in Indonesia, not only in rural area, but also here in Jakarta also, they use natural or biodegradable materials like bamboo or banana leaves for utensils and food packaging, as you can see in the figure, the first figure. And also the Maasai community from East Africa that reuse the plastic bottles to build schools and houses in the second picture. And the Zabalin community in Cairo recycling 80% of their cities waste through efficient collection and segregation. And also in Indonesia, the people called the Dayak They utilize the resources by weaving purun, that is a local sedge, into baskets to create an eco-friendly, biodegradable alternative to plastic polybags, as you can see in the last figure. So the knowledge of the indigenous people is an invaluable resource that policy frameworks must recognize and support. Next slide. Despite the successes, significant barriers exist, especially in developing countries, due to a lack of basic infrastructure and the enforcement of laws like the Extended Producer Responsibility EPR. While the developed economies having better infrastructure face the high cost of advanced technology and a major social hurdle where consumers prefer their convenience over circular products like refill models. Next, please. For the circular and sharing economies to be truly effective, they must be supported by robust policy, not just treated as economic gimmicks. This includes formally recognizing and integrating proven indigenous and local knowledge into our national frameworks, improving waste management infrastructure by investing in collection, sorting, and recycling systems, especially in developing nations, and mandating EPR laws to make producers responsible for their products' entire life cycle and establishing a global standard like the UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution, and finally, aligning the policies with Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 12, that is sustainable consumption, and SDG 9, that is innovation, to ensure broad and systemic change. Last slide, please. In conclusion, the potential of the circular and sharing economies is clear. They offer a transformative path from the waste to worth model. We must move beyond superficial gimmicks and build a framework that supports real environmental change that is grounded in global cooperation and the wisdom of local and time-tested practices. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Noor. Without delay, now we should move to the special remarks segment. And may I request Dr. Sophia Khalid to reflect on presentations by Dr. Tariqullah, Ms. Noorul Ain, and Ms. Kiran. Dr. Sophia Khalid is Chairperson, Department of Environmental Sciences at the Allama Iqbal Open University.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would start with Dr. Tariqullah Khan. He presented the paper, which is timely and intellectually rich framework. He has introduced the concept of this regenerative human development as next generation sustainability paradigm beyond 2030 SDGs. So we earlier used to have had Millennium Development Goal, then these SDGs, and we really need to know what should we have after this 2030. So this, I think the concept is good, and it is quite similar to what we see as, or with the concept that we have of green economy. So the things he has discussed in this concept of regenerative human development, to me, they are quite similar to the one that we have in the green economy framework, which is also a sustainable development, where we mainly focus on these three pillars of society, economy, and environment. So they have presented a normalized, balanced, coordinate model, which effectively visualizes the trade-offs and co-benefits between ecological and human development axis. And also the STA approach, which is substitution, transformation, and offset. These are good in defining actionable categories for policies or project design. So these are all connected well. This RHD is connected well to the existing paradigm of circular economy, ESG framework, and regenerative capitalism that we see. So I suggest that it would have been much better if this NBC and STO model could have been applied to, to one particular country, let's say to Pakistan, or to one particular sector. That could be an renewable energy sector, or it could be the agriculture sector, where it would make more clear and more understandable in that way. Similarly, if there would have been some more data-driven examples with methodological transparency, that then this would have enhanced the concept further. So I think there is a quantifiable challenge as well, because NVCs are said to be normalized, but it is not described how indicators will be scaled or weighted, or aggregated across multiple SDGs. So overall paper makes a notable and original contribution to emerging field of regenerative economics and post-SDG development studies. So yeah, I must appreciate the effort. And the second paper that was presented by Ms. Kiran Ejaz on I think that is very, because this is very a topic that we are sitting together and discussing, because Pakistan has always remained in the top 10 climate change vulnerable countries of the world. And we have seen the impacts on our economy because of these floods, and especially to the agriculture sector, where we have lots of crop losses every year. So your study addresses a nationally important problem, and how Punjab's agriculture sector is or is not becoming resilient to climate change, and the role of government and the stakeholders' engagement. So I think the time frame that you have selected from 2012 to 22 is sensible for assessing the recent policy evolution, because we see after 2010, when the 18th Amendment was implemented, we had these issues of policies development, especially in the provinces. So I think the prime frame is, the selection is really good. And you have collected both primary as well as secondary data. You have connected them well with the National Adaptation Plan. And however, I think I consider, I don't know, but I consider your sample size to be very small. It's just 10 that you have given. Similarly, you have mentioned a lot about inclusivity, and you have said that we should have the bottom-up approaches, which is good, and we should have that. But I think in your study, as far as I could understand, in your sample, you have interviewed or carried out consultations mainly with the experts that are Islamabad based, and the local farmers and extension workers, and at district level implementers are less visible or less presented. So I think that's an area you can work further on. And the vulnerable groups are mentioned, but analysis of gender differentiated impacts or responses I find missing in your presentation. So I think, and another important thing, I was expecting something related to the crop stubble, that is the crop waste that we have, which is very much related to the climate change, because you see, we face this issue of smoke every year, and we relate it with the crop stubble. But I couldn't find anything related to that in any of the policy that you have mentioned, or any of the discussion that you carried out with these stakeholders. So overall, it was a good paper, and I must appreciate your effort. And the third one, which was presented by Ms. Nurul Ain. Okay, so the paper, this is also a paper which describes the current issue of plastic waste. So we see the macro as well as the microplastic as one of the important issue in our country as well, and in the South Asia and globally as well. So the paper is comprehensive, and well-researched analysis is given about potential of circular and shared economy models in addressing the global plastic plastic waste crisis. So the resource efficiency, recycling, and product redesigning are given as sustainable consumption are presented as solution to plastic pollution. So I think the examples are also good, because local as well as regional examples are given for shared plastic economy framework. But I think the few of the things that I find, the qualitative discussion is really good, but in terms of quantitative data or comparative indicators, for example, you mentioned about plastic reduction percentage or improvement in recycling rates, or the carbon dioxide offsets because of a particular initiative in a country or region is not given. I mean, you have given it with the international these brands, manufacturing brands, but it would have been better if you could have given some statistics of those initiatives that were they really helpful or not. And similarly, another thing that I found was that we now have so many examples, like you could have compared this plastic waste policies that we have in Pakistan with the plastic waste policies there in Malaysia as well. Or also now we have the national plastic waste mitigation plan in the country as well. But I couldn't see anything about that in your this talk. So it can be improved further if you include those in it, and especially the Please project, which is very famous, and it's basically the plastic-free rivers and seas for South Asia and a regional initiative. So for the plastic pollution, to combat the plastic pollution, and is implemented through SAKIP, which is South Asian Cooperative Environment Program. So I think within Please, there have been several projects that have been conducted and many initiatives that were taken, but I couldn't find any of such example in your talk. So I think overall, your was also a very good effort, but it can further be improved if you add these things into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sophia, for your constructive reflections and forward-looking perspective. Now I will request Dr. Khalid Waleed, Research Fellow at STPI, to share his remarks on the papers by Ms. Shaista, Mr. Asjad, and Mr. Ramiz. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamazwa. Thank you so much, presenters, researchers, for presenting such diverse, insightful papers, studies. I have a few general remarks on these three papers. They share these qualities, attributes. All three contributions, research, they are good, positive contribution to the literature. As far as the literature contribution goes, these studies are insightful, good. But in terms of significance, and I would mention particularly the policy significance of it, I think we can improve these studies. Whenever we write policy implications, policy recommendations, and this is true for academia research and policy research, we need to integrate these two domains, and we can integrate by I would again second Dr. Sophia's remarks that we need to bring policy discussion into the academic contributions that we are making, that our research is making. So there are 6 levels of policy recommendations. It starts from introspection. Introspection means that you highlight what are deficiencies, what is missing in policy arena, in research arena. So introspection level things are there in the study. You are highlighting all these 3 research. They are highlighting what are the gaps, what we need to do. Second level is the integration, that how we can integrate these gaps into policy arena, particularly linking it with different policies, integrating it with different sectors, integrating with different sections of the society, different agents of the society, different institutions of the society. That's the integration part that we need to, that should be there. Third is incentivization. How we are going to incentivize policy interventions that could fill up these gaps, particularly in terms of monetary incentives. How could the tax rebates or what you say fiscal incentives should look like if you want to encourage like circular economy, if you like to encourage the feminism. What should be the financial architecture that should how should it look like? Fourth is inclusivity. how to bring inclusivity into the fold. Like these studies are very focused on one region, one particular area. How we can bring about inclusivity into it, that should be another aspect that should bring that integration, much needed integration from academic nature of these researches to a policy level interaction that make a policy level significance. And then indigenization, that is very important. Uh, how to implement the findings of these research into a policy context, or I would say cultural context of these regions and beyond. That should be the indigenization phase. And if you follow all these attributes, introspection, integration, incentivization, inclusivity, indigenization, then I think a good implementable policy recommendations can be produced. How can you produce it, and how can you make these discussion enriched? I think literature review is very important, and we often sort of neglect this aspect, the utility of literature review. Literature review, traditionally it is a research level literature review, that we take relevant papers, we do a synthesis of these paper, and we write a section that says uh, in 1998 or in 2016 or in 2025, XYZ researcher articulated that and used that technique. I think literature review, particularly for these policy level studies, it should have a policy review as well. What are different policies that are related to these aspects, particularly at local and subnational level as well. Third is a regional literature review. How this study is connected with different regional studies, particularly countries where the context is same, are SAARC countries or South Asian countries. That would really interact or enrich these studies. Third, quantitative analysis. There is good qualitative debate in these papers, but the quantitative aspect is somewhat missing. And I'll agree that the topics, data collection, data limitations are there, but there should be some mechanism that bring some quant to the discussion as well. Coming back to the specifics, let me start with the first paper that was on textile sector, integrating gender aspect and water usage. I think National Circular Economy Policy is an upcoming document by the Ministry of Climate Change. STPI is also working on it. If you link this paper, the findings of this study, with that upcoming document, linking it with other national circular economy policy, particularly in South Asian region, that would be a good policy recommendation, policy significance coming from this study. And I think carbon credits mechanism can be integrated as an incentive mechanism or incentive related policy recommendation in this study. That could be a good way forward, will enrich this study as well. Coming back to the second study, that was the first study, I think, on feminism. You presented, it was a very well articulated, well research study. I would recommend that please link it with different policies. Just for example, new energy vehicle policy of Pakistan that recently came up in 2025. Uh, uh, Electric vehicles, they are bringing about this change that more and more females, young females, they are using motorbikes, electric vehicles. So that could be a good case study that can be added to this study as well. And then National Economic Transformation Plan of Pakistan, Udan Pakistan, it has a separate pillar for equity and empowerment that can be addressed using the finding of this study as well. This will bring policy richness to the study. And lastly, last study was from Sindh, indigenization and localization of climate perspective. I think very good studies. Uh, uh, there is a study from STPI that Reimagine Human Development Index by Dr. Irfan Chattha, recently done. If you incorporate HDI and what is the impact of climate change on district level or localized HDI, that could be a very good recommendation emerging from your study. And again, it should be linked with SDGs. Local government system should be a very good part of of the recommendation that should emerge from the findings of the study, that effective operationalized local government could be a driver, a lever for a policy making phenomena change that sort of drives. And again, one thing that should be a recommendation from this study, that due to limitation of the data, quantitative analysis was not possible. That's why this study is a qualitative study. Maybe Pakistan Bureau of Statistics can be sort of advised in a way that the existing data sets that are micro level data sets like PSLM or HICE data set, there should be questions related to climate change impacts, like what are different climatic traumas that a household face in the extreme weather events. That could be a good policy recommendation that can be done to Pakistan Bureau of Statistics as well. Overall, these studies are very good, enriched discussion. I would say seminal in some aspects. So applause for you. But these suggestions, they would further extend the quality and scope of these research. Thank you so much. Back to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for your valuable synthesis and insightful observations. Now, may I request Dr. Rabia Manzoor, Deputy Chief Policy at PI, to share her remarks on the key policy takeaways. Thank you.
Everyone seems sleepy. So after 15 minutes, you will be get break. So I will start with my presentation with this one. Particularly, I'm Rabia Manzoor from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. I'm working there as a Deputy Chief Policy. Particularly for this session, I have been asked to highlight some key policy recommendations which are given in the 6 policy papers, and particularly mainly focusing on the specific policies that can be targeted, and I have to ask that give a broader perspective that how Pakistan can move forward. So with this one, I will start that in the discussion session. So particularly the presenter, they discuss several ideas and propose several solutions that how we can bring the sustainability in Pakistan, how we can include the gender inclusion, and how we can get the climate resilience. Particularly, so I will, to address these issues, I will highlight only the most practical and high impact recommendations by focusing on just 4 key policy actions. Because if we can address these 4 key policy actions, then we can drive measurable change in Pakistan. So how Pakistan can move forward, I particularly give the examples from the successful South Asia region, that what are the best practices in our neighboring country, which is really similar. The socio-economic characteristics are same. So only the purpose is that we can support government, private sector, and communities, so they can take the evidence-based, actionable steps that they can get the sustainable resilience Pakistan. So these are the 4 key policy pillars action which I'm going to propose here based on the presentations. So the first one is women-led circular economy in textile sector, gender-responsive climate leadership, and community resilience by addressing the mental health and also the plastic waste from the producer responsibilities. As everyone knows that textile is the biggest sector in Pakistan, and mainly in Pakistan overall, 20 to 30% of textile waste is not reusable. And because this textile waste is not reusable, so then that's mean that we lost the economic value of those things. And it also creates the environmental burden on the Pakistan economy. Though 70% of the textile waste is reusable somehow, but in that purpose, the women particularly, so they are not like have work on the recycling, and particularly they are working still informal, and it's also like not undervalued and underpaid. So that's why the policy proposal has been made in the paper that there is a need to formalize women-led recycling and upcycling corporations. When we look particularly the regional examples, we can see here the Bangladesh. Sorry, I think other glasses on. Cannot see the clear version here. So if we can see the Bangladesh is a good example. So the green garments program, and particularly the textile industry is focusing on that program. And they focused on the waste reduction and reuse. In that program, the women, they are trained that how to collect the waste material and how to sort and upcycle textile scraps into export quality products. And particularly by using those leftovers, they are making bags, rugs, and home decors. And the one best example in Dhaka, we can say that is the Dash Upcycle project. In that project, particularly in Dhaka, the women's, they are using the leftover textile fabrics and they are turning into the high value accessories. And those high value accessories that are selling in the international markets, that are not like as the local markets that are selling in the international markets. So what we can do in Pakistan, because around 20 to 30% textile waste is not reusable. So we can utilize that waste and then we can create the same hubs in Faisalabad, Karachi, and Lahore. And then we can launch the district level women upcycling companies. And those companies, particularly, they are integrated textile clusters with the skill centers. And we have to provide the export platforms that they can turn waste into valuable products. And in this way, we can create some more job opportunities for the people. Though everyone discussed that women are the frontline factors when the disaster is happening. So, and the women's mainly, they are responsible to handle farming, they are handling food security at home, for the water pitching and everything, and particularly the caregiving services in terms of disasters. But when we talk about the local climate decision-making bodies, so only the women's, they are the part of 3 to 5% of these local bodies. And the women's, they are not engaged with these kind of discussions, though they are the frontline actors, but in terms of the climate decision-making bodies, they are not a part of that. And in addition, they have the limited access to climate finance. They don't have like the leadership roles. They are not getting the good trainings that they can excel in their fields. So some proposals has been made that there is we need to build the capacity programs to train women as climate leaders and particularly give the training that they can adapt the planning, budgeting, and early warning systems. And there is particularly dedicated funding windows for women-led climate initiatives. And these initiatives are at the provisional level and the district level. But when we look into the regional examples, we can see that particularly the one example is the Nepal, that 40% women participation is mandatory in local adaptation plans. So that's mean that the women are trained at the local level to conduct the climate vulnerability assessments. And those women's-led cooperatives, they are getting directly access to microclimate funds for local adaptation. So that's mean that there is a need to work on the bottom-up approach, as Kiran highlighted in her presentation. And in India, if you can look, so in India, there are special 2 good programs that I can highlight here. So the one is the Odisha program, that Women Climate Resilient Committee. They made this committee at the village level. And at the village level, they are empowering women that how to manage the climate adaptation funds. If there is a disaster, if they are getting the climate funding, so how we can manage those kind of fundings, so they are getting that kind of trainings. In India, there is another good program that is the National Rural Livelihood Mission. And in that program, that is the women self-help group. And those women self-help group are created at the village level, that they are working on the sustainable agriculture at the village level. And in that way, that if we have to particularly use the bottom-up approach, that we have to train those females and have to build their capacity that they can be a good fit in the economy.
Dr. Rabia, sorry to intervene. If we can just
Yeah.
take two
Okay.
key takeaways because
So
we
then
already
the
discussed some.
Bangladesh is also a good example that women are integrated in the National Action Plan. So I already discussed that what Pakistan has to adopt. So they have to establish the women's climate action networks at the provincial and district level, and particularly they can go behind the local level. So the mental health is also the hidden resilience indicator, the pillar of the economy. And the Pakistan, particularly when the disaster are happening, like as per a flood and earthquake, so the women particularly, they can go long-term trauma and stress. And mental health support is also missing in the most disaster risk reductions. So I will just go the regional examples that in Nepal particularly, so they have the community-based mental health after 2015 earthquake. So they integrated this into the National Action Plan. There are some NGOs who are working to train the local volunteers as the community psychological workers. And what Pakistan can do if they don't have the additional resources, so they can train the lady health workers, teachers, and local volunteers as a frontline mental health respondents. And then they have there is a need to include the mental health and trauma care indicators in the National Adaptation Plan as well. So this one is my last point that I have to talk about the plastic waste and the producer responsibilities, because in Pakistan, it's a big challenge that we generate more than 3.9 million tons of plastic annually, and there is no recycling dates. And there is a weak formal recycling system with limited producer accountability. So if we can look into the India and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh example, they have a very good framework that they have the plastic waste management rules, and particularly Dr. Khalid told that there is also upcoming policy that could be on the plastic waste. So might be that could be like as my suggestions will be there. So there is a need to develop a national roadmap with clear EPR targets and timelines. And we need to formalize and support informal waste workers, especially women. And the government have to offer tax rebates or green certification for those companies who are meeting the EPR standards or the compliance. So this is, I think, so my 4 key policy pillar. If the Pakistan can work on that, so that could be a good that Pakistan can move to the sustainable page. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia. Now we can conclude the session, and I'd like to invite Dr. Saima Mead for the final
Thank you,
words
Uzma.
on the
And I'll
service
make it quick. No worries on that. But let me begin by, complimenting SDPI for choosing this theme of the conference, and not just that, but holding this session, which I believe brings richness to the conference. The rich diversity and inclusion of the new voices is particularly important, as we've seen through our experts, that there are so many policy implications. Mostly we know what to do. There are high impact practices that are known. Those were highlighted. But what makes sense to us is the indigenous knowledge. And all of the presenters, as well as the experts, brought that out. I won't go into detail, but would like to mention here that I'm reminded of Stacy's complexity matrix. It actually fills the gap between policy and practice. And how does it do that? You focus on one thing, and then you look at all the dimensions and move from the complexity towards simplicity, because that's the way of translating policies into actions. Thank you, moderator, for organizing this session in such a way that not only the speakers get the feedback from experts over here, they're able to, I'm sure there are lots of things, the critique that would help you reform your papers and publish them, so that the audience today and many more who use SDPI website can benefit from it. So thank you for organizing this, and I wish everyone the best.
Thank you to everyone for joining the session. Now we can have a group photo, and then we can break out for lunch.